Oh, I didn't want to stand on now.
Yeah. Hi there. I told Brendan already that you wanted to make an investment.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
Just
Nice.
kind of filling in some time, yes. Not sure if Eric's gonna be here or not.
There's a,
He's not.
no, he, got stranded. He was traveling somewhere and got stranded.
Yeah.
He's also not gonna be here January, February, March, because he's gonna be in.
Ah. He was last year too. Yeah, I don't remember where he went.
Where is the person? There is not. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's call this meeting to order then. It is Thursday, December 11th. This is the Town of Waldeboro Planning Board. We have a quorum today with 3 out of 5 of our members. Item 2 is adjustments to the agenda. Mark, I understand you want to make an adjustment here.
Yes,
To
just to
discuss
prevent,
this.
present some other possible issues for the board to consider.
Okay. Mind if we do that after the application review?
Yeah, no.
Okay, citizen comments. Is anyone here with comments not related to this application?
Well, I'm just gonna continue to make a presence and a voice heard about concerns regarding the post cell tower for Friendship Road. And while I'm one here at the moment, there are others that couldn't make it tonight. But I know that there isn't anything on the agenda for this evening that but
All right, so I guess next up is Shane
All right.
McGarvey.
Sweet. Do I get the podium?
Yeah, please.
Nice.
Could be back. Let's see, so last time I came in front of you guys a couple of years ago, I don't remember the exact date. And it was a much broader idea of the same plan. And been working on it for a couple of years. Now I am back looking for, I think in that plan, I had talked about being a minor event center. Do you need me to back up and tell you?
I don't
who I
think,
am and what
I
I'm doing?
I don't know that I have heard about your event center plans.
Okay.
You've come here a bunch of times,
Oh, yeah.
other projects, but I don't recall this event center. This
Okay.
might have predated me.
It was
Okay.
the application that I sent accidentally originally.
I never looked at it. I skipped to the correct.
Okay, good, 'cause
Okay.
that- strike that from the
Okay,
record,
great.
'cause that was an old one from, I think, 2022 or something.
Okay.
Which I think was the last thing you were.
Yeah, well, I've been here. I like hanging out.
For this, for this particular.
Yes, so I'm Shane, I'm co-owner with my wife of Applecroft at 122 Atlantic Highway. I'm sure you guys have seen my shiny new sign. We run a wedding catering company. Currently, for the last 10 years, I did it under the name Harvest Moon for a bunch of years. The plan, and has been the plan since I moved back to Maine 10 years ago, has always been to try to figure out how to save that family farm with my catering and cooking and stuff. Step one was build a successful catering company, which I did, and then I lost it in the pandemic, and then I did again under a different name. So now things are starting to move in the direction of, which has always been the plan of make the piece of property itself make money. Right now I run all over the state catering high-end weddings at all kinds of fancy venues and giant mansions and oceanfront estates and things like that. But I don't want to do that. I want to stay in Waldeboro. Because that piece of property, I don't know how much you're familiar with it, but it's an amazing piece of property. It's 100 acres. It's the entire west side of Kaler's Pond. It goes back onto the other side of the power line, and so it's pretty far, deep lot, with I don't know how many feet of frontage there. Good amount of frontage. And not a lot of neighbors, and the neighbors that I do have are cool. Dana Dow, Wheat Farm, Dow Furniture. So it's a quiet part of town, but it's zoned commercial A. 1A. So it's zoned for whatever. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I remember when you came here.
yeah.
And I was just wondering, is there something changed dramatically from when you first came here to now to get these plans going? Because I remember I was very excited for you for that.
No, I've been
Presentation.
unfortunately, the margins on food service are slim.
Yes,
So I'm trying to bootstrap this whole thing.
okay.
And so it's like, how do I take little bites of this and fund this whole plan?
Okay.
And I can go over like the sort of the stuff we have done. The noticeable ones, the new sign and the driveway. The driveway was our big one this summer. That ended up being a lot of money. But that puts us exactly where we want to be on Route 1 in terms of, our entrance. I worked with the DOT closely for that to get that spot now is fantastic sight lines. You can see all the way to the top of the hill. You can see all the way up past, like almost a hillside. It's
Yeah.
great in both
Yes,
directions.
so
It's,
I bought some wedding gifts at the Waltember
yeah,
Kitchen.
you remember
years
that
ago,
driveway was
And
scary.
that driveway was very scary
Yeah.
and it's.
Yeah,
who
it
else?
doesn't look like it's gonna be because it's not that steep of a hill,
Right, but
but it's like boom.
you gotta
cars
be
just
able to
come
look
up.
left and right at the same
Okay.
time.
I know, I'm teaching my 15-year-old daughter how to drive right now, and it's terrible. So we've been working on this stuff, trying to do infrastructure stuff, trying to plan stuff, trying to get bids on everything. And now I wanted to just, get in front of you guys and talk about just make sure that we're on the same page, that I'm doing everything right, that I'm moving in the right direction, that I'm thinking of all the things, because I've poured over the town ordinance for the, and there's not a lot in there for major event center.
Yeah.
It doesn't go into a lot of detail. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. I want to make sure that Mark is involved. Sorry to interrupt you, Mark.
No.
Because right now, all I'm looking to do is now that I have that new driveway in, take a part of the field, turn it into a parking lot and do tented weddings. I do this all the time now at private homes where rental companies come in, they put up a tent, they bring in a restroom trailer, they bring in generators, they bring in everything you need. So I want to open up my property to that. And to do that, I need to be an event center. And talking to Kate, we were looking at the difference between minor and major. And just looking at the ordinance, she said, why not just ask for major? Because it doesn't, there's not a lot of much in the, more hurdles to jump through to get up to from minor to major. So I can't see in there why I wouldn't.
Is it just a question of numbers, logistics and all that? Because, but you go and say, I want to be a major and then just downsize to a minor? and go back and forth.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I wouldn't quite understand that distinction.
The in the ordinance, there's not,
The only difference between a major and a minor in the ordinance is a minor event center has 12 or fewer events per year with
12.
less than 60 trips.
Yeah, it's,
Whereas a major one has more than that.
and it's, the minor says it's seasonal. And the major says it is year round. I'm not gonna be year round. We all know that that's not gonna happen. You know, that's just, you know, I mean, even, and the best comparison, for all of this, you know, in the short term and the long term is it's great because Topsail Farms has kind of already done this. You know, and even with all of the stuff they built, they've added heating to their cabins, they've got the beautiful house for rent, their barn is heated, all of that. They still don't get much business in the winter.
no, no.
I mean, they're, you know, they do some raclette dinners and you know, I think a maple Sunday thing, and they really don't, there's just not much you can do to get people to do stuff all year round. So that part of it, yeah, you know, I'll do the best I can. You know, we're always trying to extend our season, but
To be honest, looking at the minor versus major event center, I don't really understand why we have two different event center categories.
well, you guys are rewriting the code.
Yeah, this is not a partial, you know, every new application, it seems like, you know, we're looking at a new part of the document. And we're constantly finding things like, why is this written this way? It
Yeah.
doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, all of the requirements under the major event center are all things that you would have to comply with anyway under a minor event center. Like there's no additional
Yeah,
requirement.
there's not extra stuff.
You just have unlimited events, you know, it's sort of, I'm not entirely sure why this is broken into two categories.
Unless you wanted to like charge a fee, you know, like as the town or something.
Yeah,
for-
I mean-
For more or less, you know, like,
Yeah,
but
the-
you
the
don't
only-
do that anyway, so.
And the only thing I can think of is if we decided to build the Waldeboro Civic Center, like the Augusta Civic Center,
Yeah.
something like that, that really was a bona fide year-round venue, but I don't know that that's gonna happen in my life.
Probably not, probably not.
You know
Another,
what interested me? What actually constitutes an event? If you put a bunch of fruit out on a table, is that an event? Or versus a concert with?
Yeah, I mean,
people?
I think an event, and my understanding is just anything where we're opening up to the public or you know, being booked as a private thing. One of the things that I wanted to do, you know, and this opening it up for events is going to take me a couple of years to get to that point anyway.
Right.
Because right now, the way the wedding industry works is it's all booked out so far. I'm already booked solid for 2026. So I have to talk to you guys now to start advertising for 2027. But one of the things that I would like to do in 2026 is a series of farm dinners. We've been working really hard the last couple of years on putting some big garden plots in the backfield, making them really, really nice, with wood chips and everything so that they're presentable. And I thought it would be a great way to get people onto the property, have dinner that then could book for 2027. So I would like to do that. And that I would restrict my numbers myself. You know, my wife said no more than 20 people. You know, so that I think that counts as an event. I mean, selling tickets to a dinner, right?
Our,
Do you have a definition?
well, our definition doesn't say event, but it describes an event center as a building or parcel designed to host mass gatherings. So
Yeah.
I would say that an event would be a gathering of people, large gathering of people.
I would wonder too, if the event definition might be clearer, if it's an instance where you have to have a certain kind of insurance to cover.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, that would define an event, if
Yeah.
you're having people for something on your property, you would have a certain kind of insurance to cover that.
And there's some sort of transactional.
Right, and
You
your
know.
insurance policy might dictate size and frequency and on and on
And
and on.
somebody's paying.
Right, I mean, I'm
You
sure you
know,
can get
the-
whatever you're willing to pay for, but,
Uh,
you know.
I would also, just going back to the event center, minor versus major. According to the matrix, major event centers are allowed in certain places. Being rural and Route 1A only. And, minor event centers are allowed in the village and Route 1B as well. I think the distinction is because major event centers are everywhere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, that does make sense.
which, yeah. I've got a great spot. Yeah.
But it is allowed in Route 1A, which is where you are.
Right.
Perfect. So let's see, you know, right now, I'm not looking to build anything. I'm not looking to, you know, put any permanent structures up. I just can't afford them. What I am looking to do in the next year is I've got a guy coming, I think next week to do a bunch of tree clearing. I've been working with CMP and another guy who does pole work. And I talked to a couple electricians. At some point, I'll need to get electrical service out to the back field behind the, you know. You can't see it from the road, but past the barn, there's a large field, a bunch of large fields out behind that you can't see
Mhm.
the yard, driveway. So working on a plan to get electrical service out to the field, which is a big job. But, you know, at some point, I'm gonna need it.
Could I ask a couple questions?
Yeah,
The parking lot.
Yep.
What's the vision of the parking lot? Is this we're parking on grass in the field? Are you going to make a gravel parking lot at some point? Or is it going to be a paved parking lot or?
I think that would be dictated by the frequency of events. If it were just weddings, which is what we're primarily focused on, because that's what the catering business does. That's really the wedding catering is the by far the bulk of the money that's spent
Right.
catering on the coast of Maine. It's a short season, but a lucrative season. And you know, Topsail can tell you the same thing. You know, they do stuff in the shoulder seasons, but that, you know, that 18 weeks in the summer is your money. So that the thing about weddings is they're only on weekends.
Mm.
So you're really looking at one day a week. So a grass lawn, I think, could, you know, to be fine.
So I guess where I'm kind of headed is, and I get doing things in increments
Yeah.
and making improvements over a 10-year plus period and all that kind of thing. But the one thing in the application that is hard for me is I think I understand it,
Mhm.
but I'd rather be sure I understand it. Is that
Absolutely.
map is very difficult to
Oh, yeah,
understand.
because there's really not much there. you know?
Well, it's also really
Yeah.
micro, and I'm wearing glasses now, but still the icons don't really match the legend and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And it's also just squished together.
Yeah.
And even if it was hand drawn, it would be helpful. I mean, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't have any, I mean, I'm not hearing any crazy red flags or anything, but if you could have
Yeah.
a little clearer sense, because at some point, as you develop this, and I don't know how much master planning you're thinking about doing. I know you got a vision in your head. But just listening to you talk about it, when you start introducing electrical and septic and possibly impervious surface on a parking lot, depending on,
Yep,
you know, if you decide it turns into mud because
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
it would be, if you have a little bit clearer drawing of what this long-term plan is, then it would be easier to understand where, gosh, that can't be near the septic system or
Yeah.
those sorts of
Yeah.
things, because from that drawing, it's really difficult.
Yeah,
to-
and it's tough because it's like, we wanna park on this grass, party on this grass. And that's all it is, it's just grass, there's no, you know.
Right, I get that,
um,
but you're also gonna dig underground.
Yes.
And
yeah.
so, you know, it would just be, I think it would be good for you.
Yeah.
It would also be easier for us to
Absolutely.
understand. if-
And the one, there, that you bring up another point that I spotted in the ordinance that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the. In the ordinance. There's some talk about screening of a parking lot.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to find out like how. How to go about doing that. If I put a 100-car parking lot. You know, more towards the road side of things where it's more convenient for us. I don't wanna. Have the cars be visible from the wedding site. Or the event space. It makes more sense to put them on the road side of the barn. You know, do I ask for a variance on that? Do I plant some trees? Do I, you know, like what is? Because there's no neighbors are gonna see it. It's just a parking lot would be visible from Route 1.
Yeah.
But obviously hedging in or fencing in 100-car parking lot. I mean, you know that property, when you come down, you're gonna see all 100 cars, so to make it, to screen that off would be. You know, astronomical amount of hedging or something, or fencing, you know, that's,
It doesn't need to be invisible.
yeah.
You
To
know,
hide 100 cars would be nearly impossible.
the screening requirements, I thought you had found them and put them in, yeah, right,
Yeah,
in buffer areas, right?
Yeah, just cause they caught my eye.
Yeah, so you're right. The point is to block the view of the cars from Route 1.
Yeah.
It's also to you know, there's also a call for a 2.5-inch tree per 20 parking spaces inside of the lot. And you know,
And that all makes sense because it's like when you're doing a parking lot, you want to have those little green space areas and everything.
exactly. It's trying
I'm
to
surrounded by acres of lawn. You know,
Well,
then,
are you parking in a field or
Yeah.
are you building a parking lot? I mean,
yeah.
that is part of the conversation, I would think, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, my thought was to. I've got a couple of areas that I've been sort of practice mowing. And you know, to make sure that they're flat and they drain. So for the last couple summers. I've on either side of that new driveway that comes up, I've just sort of mowed large rectangles to see how they stand up. See how this summer was a weird one because it was super wet and then super dry. And just kind of feeling them out, you know, because in the fields, whenever you have big fields, there's sort of areas, and you can kind of tell by what grass grows of how wet they're gonna be. But, you know, so I'm just trying to find some high, dry, flat spots that I can use that are gonna drain well. You know, because the whole thing does kind of go downhill and drains off. You know, eventually ends up in that culvert and goes across the dump puddle. You know, so there's you know, but the idea of trying to, and I'm all about planting trees around them and, you know, move some rocks and put some planters and all that stuff, but to screen the whole area would be.
It's, you know, you know, what it says here is the landscaping shall be designed to soften, screen, or enhance the physical design of structures and parking areas to avoid the encroachment of the proposed use on abutting land uses. You know, it's a pretty vague standard here. If you are going to keep it grass, I would be willing to agree to waiving the shade trees in the middle of the parking lot, because really the point of that is to reduce heat island effects.
Yeah.
It's all grass, you're not going to have
Yeah.
any heat island effects. But we really should have, you know, some sort of landscape work done between the road and the
Yeah.
parking area. And if you wanted to do that in phases as you're growing the parking area to
Also,
make it bite-sized, like that's
Is it
reasonable too.
Would it work if I planted things? Like, you know, because my wife's dying to get a bunch of apple trees in the ground. And I keep telling her, you can't plant apple trees until we define the parking lot.
Yeah.
Then you can put apple trees all around it, you know, and
I guess for me, I go back to having some kind of master plan that you're aiming at, whether you
Yeah.
ever actually get to all of it. But I think I think you may paint yourself into a weird corner if you put the cart before the horse on certain things, if you don't really have the whole thing figured out, even down to something like, you're describing how you're experimenting with figuring out where drainage and whatever, but I mean, back when I was younger, I mean, I did enough horse shows and watched enough vehicles get stuck in fields when it decided to rain at
Oh, yeah.
an opportune time and all that. And I mean, I think you're gonna discover some of those things in your early phases, and you
Yep.
may find like, wow, if we just put a French drain in here or something like that. And,
Yep.
and if you don't have that stuff figured out before you start planting things, you may end up
Digging up my apple
unplanting
tree.
things
Yeah.
pretty quickly and,
Yeah.
it would, I don't know that we have any standing to say this, but as somebody who's done a lot of this work, I would
I'll take advice too.
recommend that, I mean, at some point, when you get involved in septic and if you actually build a real parking lot, you're gonna have to have somebody with civil engineering training
Yeah.
to assist you, and that person will make sure that all these questions are fixed and answered and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
done right the first time,
Yeah. For sure.
so.
It's one of those situations where I have to, in terms of financially, I have to book the
Yeah.
space
I get it,
to build, to put the infrastructure stuff in.
Right.
And in terms of the list of infrastructure, what comes first, like I said, I'm working on power because that's, I think, the biggest ticket item.
Mhm.
I have to clear, I've got poles coming to the house now. I would have to move a pole a little bit off to the, like on the one side of the driveway to the other side of the
Right.
driveway so that I have a shot around the side of the house. And then I can clear woods to come around to that back field, but it's a big task just to get poles out there.
So you're gonna go overhead with the power, so that wouldn't interfere with septic, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody I've talked to said putting in poles is the easiest way to go.
Yeah.
Especially up there on top of that hill. You run into ledge every 10 feet.
Right.
You got some dirt and then rocks and then dirt and then, and there's not a lot of topsoil up there. The fields have some more, but up around the house, you're kicking rocks everywhere. So, and then that also, with all of this planning, I want to give myself room to grow
right,
for the next, just keep building on this for the next 10, 15 years.
Right.
So starting off with tented weddings with nothing out there, eventually I want to add actual restrooms. So then all of a sudden it's septic, we need a new well out there, we need power out there.
right.
All of that stuff. I've talked to all of those people, and is it all in the plan yet? No. But I've definitely got people out there walking around and trying to figure it out.
Good start.
Building some structures and and doing all that sort of stuff. We'll get there. It's a lot of money that I don't have, but
Right, yeah, I understand.
like I said, start with throwing some dinners in my backyard and just
Yeah.
try to get people excited. We've spent a lot of money in the last year on the marketing end of it. I was just telling Kate, I did last year, I did the new branding, the new logo and the new sign. This year I hired a PR person to overhaul the website, but also to really change all of our marketing copy, because we're going to be a farm-based business. There's a lot of cool marketing we can do with that. I've got some really cool stuff that I'll show you. She's been doing lots of cool market research
Mhm.
with numbers, like with actual data of the industries of all this stuff. So it's awesome. And I think it's money well spent. I talked to a couple other businesses, the woman who runs the All in the Store, and she said when she started the PR company was a great investment. To really focus your stuff and then to, once your stuff is all very tight, then it's easier for them to get you that one New York Times article or something like that, and then
Right.
boom, and then all of a sudden
Your red
You're going.
seats,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And we've that piece of property has all the things you're looking for. It's got, just awesome, beautiful woods. Kaler's Pond is amazing.
Right.
It's dead quiet. Yeah.
I was just thinking, I have more of a procedural question. I'm
Yeah.
getting ahead of myself, but maybe the board can help me. So getting ahead of myself, I love the idea. I loved it 2 years ago. So if we voted to say yes, it seems like you're gonna phase this, do this in phases. So if we vote yes, does that mean if 2 years after you put in these restrooms, do we vote
I
on,
think
is
I think
that?
all of those pieces are more concerned with Mark, like the
The code stuff.
the code stuff. Right, am I? Because,
Again, I don't know, I mean, I don't know, I admit
Yeah.
my ignorance, but, so if you vote on it, does that mean that if the person, not just you, anybody
Yeah.
wanted to do, even though they expressed that they want to continue to grow, does that, are we voting on something that may happen 2 years after the fact?
yeah, I mean, all I'm asking right now is just to be able to have events in the
Right,
field,
it's just, okay.
with no stuff, because it doesn't make sense for me to, I've got a whole bunch of drawings of all these things I want to do, but I don't have the money to do them.
Mhm.
They're down the road. I've got to start with, with just literally putting tables out in the middle of my garden and work my way up. So, but I would need your guys' approval to even start with that.
Well, I kind of like what you said earlier about the parking lot, that like up to this point, it's, because I too think this is a nice project. But up to a certain point before you actually start what's really hardcore construction,
Yeah.
it's easier to approve up to that point, but then to say, when you want to get to phase two, which means you're actually building a structure or creating impervious surface in a parking lot, or, things that, I mean, I don't think it matters if you plant a tree, but you know what I mean? Once you start doing those things that and I'm gonna also throw in a question of my own here because I'm not sure the answer. I did a lot of stuff in New Hampshire and they have something called an alteration of terrain permit that we had to file thousands of those things where I worked. Do they do that in Maine?
I've never heard of such a thing.
Okay, because if they had them in.
Unless it's in 75 feet of any creek or water or anything like.
No, that's different.
Shoreline
It's when you're changing the use of land.
Oh, okay.
And you start doing these things I'm describing, then you have to file this thing with the state, and then the. Like the Fish and Game will decide what happened to us that. Oh my God, wood turtles like nesting in these places, and just in case a wood turtle comes by, and just all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm not trying to make things complicated, but. There is like that threshold that when you start, going past the point of no return, where you're really changing the land.
Yeah.
By building structures and making impervious surface, that maybe that would be a time to come back for phase two.
Yeah,
and
I'll
to-
come back every year.
Well, and also you may have changed your mind from today after you've lived this for a couple of years.
Yeah,
That what we really need is X, and we didn't realize that.
yeah.
I mean, you as the board can put conditions of approval on things. And my understanding of that is you could put a condition of approval in that if he changes from, an event in a field and starts to construct something, he then has to come back.
Yeah.
That could be a
Yeah,
condition that you put on the.
like real actual structures as opposed to putting in a garden or planting a tree.
Yeah, and because. My plan was to, to sort of start with this, and then as I get funding, start submitting stuff to Mark, for example, one of the earlier pieces that I've got sketched up and I just got some engineering done for was. A metal pavilion,
Mhm.
like a carport.
Right,
Just so that I have a permanent place to do the catering under.
right,
So if they're renting tents, that's great. And, you know, but it'd be nice to have a permanent place with a, instead of working on
Yes.
grass,
right,
pour some slab and put a, you know,
Right.
a roof over a space, so. You know, but that would be with him, but I'm also happy to come back and show you guys all that stuff too.
Yeah,
When
I'm
we get
not-
to that point.
I'm not really sure what goes where, it's just listening to this because you are, you know, and I completely get your process and, you know, success breeds success and on and on and on.
Yeah.
But at some point, when you start altering things that you would actually have to, if you wanted to go back, you'd actually have to bring in machinery to tear down or dig out or whatever, then it just seems to me that somebody should know that you're not doing something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, if there's
it
a
shouldn't be.
process for that sort of phased approach, I'm all for it, you know, because I wish I could come and just, you know, be like, here's,
Right.
you know, the whole plan.
Right.
But that's,
Well, you need to have a little
You would-
flexibility too.
Right.
He would also have to get building permits for a lot of it if he's putting in a septic. All of that has to go through the CEO.
Right.
So.
Right.
but still coming back in front of you guys.
I think that that's what would have to happen is because this is a planning board approved type of project that you're gonna come back in front of us for each successive phase of the project.
Okay,
So I think that in order to make this sort of clear and succinct so that we've got, you know, sort of an understandable project that we're gonna approve.
Yeah.
I'd say get us the stuff for the very first phase and ignore all of your future plans.
Yep.
And when you're ready to do that, we'll come back and
Yeah.
approve those.
yeah,
So the things that I see that you're missing out of the application are the planting plan. If you want to do a couple rows of staggered apple trees out there,
Mhm.
like that, I think is great. I think that meets the requirement. The rest of the construction stuff that you're talking about is sort of unrelated to this.
Mhm.
yeah,
You know, you're running power lines and that's about it. You know, but you're putting in this parking lot, and we've got the screening requirements and you're gonna do what else? You're gonna probably put in is a tent gonna go on grass as well?
Yep.
They build like floors inside of it?
Nope.
Nope.
I mean, they bring those dance.
Like a dance floor,
but
right.
Those come out.
Right.
Snap together.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like we've got an erosion control plan requirement, but you're not really doing any construction. Like this might be one of the rare moments where we would be willing to waive that. I can't really see how anything that you're doing is creating.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess you've got the vehicle traffic in the grass parking area, but I don't really know how we would manage that because there's no rules that I'm aware of that govern any of that. I mean, the erosion control plan is really about construction,
yeah.
you know. Stormwater is
Yeah, earth
unchanged.
disturbance.
You got the same amount of
Would earth disturbance count if I don't think I would need to, but if I wanted to take an area that's grass and level it more and reseed it? So that would be earth disturbance and would,
yeah,
then that would require.
yeah, totally.
An erosion, because while it was reseeded, it could erode.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And
Gotcha.
until it's stabilized, your erosion control stays in place,
Gotcha.
and then you tear it down.
Makes sense.
Your old application too, I think what you did was you took Google Maps satellite
Yeah,
and then drew onto that. And if
Yeah.
you could do the same thing for this phase, just to include, it would just, then we, you know, there would be no misunderstandings about what it is. That I mean, I really think I know what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
I would personally feel better if I could see it on, you know, that would be
Yeah.
pretty
I'll
easy.
make some better drawings.
Yeah.
I like that.
We don't have a stormwater plan requirement for something like this, right?
If you're not making impervious surface
It's
or
not a
building
subdivision.
anything. Right, I don't think you can
don't think there's a requirement.
I don't know
for it.
how much of what happened when you added the driveway, but that's kind of water under the bridge right now, right? Or,
Yeah, I mean, I assume that was just a building permit. That's not
right,
anything related to us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because that's the only place I can think of that would have changed
yeah,
drainage.
yeah, I mean, all that makes sense. All the other stuff that I see that you're missing from the application is all the stuff in 3.5 in the land use ordinance. That's all the, habitat stuff and the historical and archaeological report and like all of that stuff from 3.5.1.
So what do I need to do with all that?
That all needs to be included in your application.
Okay.
There's a website called Beginning with Habitat where you can pull out habitat maps.
Yeah.
So you know, like,
It's basically just, gathering up a bunch of information for us so that we sort of understand what's happening.
Yeah.
A lot of it doesn't apply to you because it's, about sewage or,
Yeah, the only habitat I'm disturbing is maybe getting some of those deer away from my garden.
Yeah, so the map just will it'll have deer bedding areas and vernal pools and that kind of stuff indicated on it. Like you're right on Route 1, I'm sure you don't have a vital animal habitat in your field. But it's one of the things that we've got to have.
Yeah, turkeys.
Yeah.
The coyotes, I think they at like 3 or 4 in the morning, they cross at that lowest point of the road there. I hear
They,
So I
they
think
like, they like the new entrance.
them. They just, I think they go back and forth between Duck Puddle and Kaler's in the middle of the night. I don't think they're very super concerned about what the coyotes. are.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Okay. And then one other thing to tell you, I went out and I bought a decibel meter.
Oh,
Just because I knew at some point it's gonna come up.
yeah.
And couldn't figure out a way to really test it, so I went and had my son shoot a shotgun up in the field and took a measurement of it, and then I went down and stood next to Dana's house on the rock wall in the woods. And this is in the winter, so there's no trees at all, and then measured it again. And you can barely hear it.
Yeah,
It's
it barely shows up. It's
Yeah.
a long way to your
it is
property
a
lines. Yeah,
decent
I'm not surprised.
stretch. And in the summer, it'll be way less.
Yeah.
And the ambient traffic noise was more than the shotgun.
Yeah.
Down right next to Dana's house, because trucks coming down that hill, they're so loud.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I live very close to the Topsail and I know when they're having an event that goes into the night
Mhm.
because you can't really hear the music, but you can feel the bass line.
Yeah.
And that's what transmits, and I'm not quite in a butter, but close. But they're always very good at observing the time, and I mean, I don't find it annoying. I find it, it's reasonable, but
Yeah.
that's probably, I would imagine that's the sound band that,
Yeah.
just from my
Yeah.
own experience.
And having been in the business for ever, as coming from the catering business, I'm all about being done at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I wanna go home. There's no, I'm sure there's issues when you're running into people who want to set up a place to party and stuff, but
Right.
the weddings we do, no way.
Yeah.
I've been cooking since
Well, I think
the whole morning.
10 o'clock is a reasonable,
Oh, and I mean, I'll keep checking it too, and, keep talking to Dana. He's really our only neighbor.
Yeah.
The guys across the street, they'll ever say anything.
you might I mean, just for fun, take that device sometime when they're doing an event at Topsail. Just sort of drive around and see how much distance
Yeah.
before it triggers and just lay that over on your own
Yeah,
terrain.
and I mean, and 32 is a much quieter street. It's, overcoming that ambient.
Sometimes.
Route 1 is,
No, I know, you're right.
it's,
I'm just
it's,
joking.
it's especially because of the hills, the trucks breaking down the hills.
Yeah,
Makes a good deal of noise.
right.
So,
Hillside.
you won't hear us over that. And plus, it really is, we might run into a different situation if we ever get to the point where the barn is being used. Because I do have this huge barn, but I'm not even gonna talk about it because to even, begin to think about that, I need a lot more money. Just because my parents did jack it up and fix the foundation and put a metal roof on, when they bought it.
Yeah.
35 years ago or whatever, so it's not going anywhere. But to take it from agricultural, old historic old barn to event space is just a daunting. I don't even want to think about that. But if I ever got to that point, then that is much more where those front doors open, you're shooting sound out. But in the backfield, yeah, there's nobody back there but coyotes. And really there's nobody. It's Dana and that whole valley, nobody really lives there. There's a couple people over on the lake, and then behind us, there's nothing till you get to Controversy Lane, which is 2 miles back or something. So I don't think neighbors are gonna be the issue.
Yeah.
And as long as hopefully the DOT doesn't make any new weird things or anything. One thing that we are really adamant about as caterers is, even going to other venues, I always make sure that there's, because we're the licensed bar service, I always make sure that there's shuttles available for the guests. And I would do the same thing on our property. It's when your liquor license is on the line,
Right.
it's essential that you make sure that shuttles are available. So, the like 100-car thing in there, I don't want 100 people coming to a wedding and driving away. No way. Like, that's just, and that's a whole nother world of between me and the liquor licensing and but.
John,
Yeah.
so if you have, what theoretically you have 100 cars
Yep,
at a wedding, people have a few drinks, so they have to exit right onto Route 1.
Yep.
Has there been any discussion with DOT? Is that's an issue, a safety issue,
mean-
or nothing?
I
Is
mean,
it just-
DOT loves that spot because it's got great sight lines.
Right,
DOT doesn't overlap with the Bureau of Alcohol and Lottery at all. Like there's no communication between those two.
The real issue is, I mean, the place I worked also, not because we wanted to, but kind of had weddings foisted upon us from time to time, and
Yep.
the big issue is over the insurance and the caterer and serving, and that's the, you shouldn't, I mean, I'm telling you what
Yeah.
you shouldn't serve someone beyond a certain point,
Of
because that's risking your whole everything.
Yep.
And so that's the incentive to,
And for us as caterers, we want people to have the best time at their
Right.
wedding. So if I go to a wedding and I see a car for, a parking lot filling up, we're gonna treat that wedding differently.
right,
If everybody shows up on school buses and the parking lot only has the staff,
mhm,
we know we can let them have a little more fun.
right,
And so we're always encouraging that from the beginning.
exactly.
You can have a more fun wedding if you just pay for these buses.
Right.
It's not that much money, and they're all going to, I mean, there's only a couple of hotels, so get everybody back to the hotels.
Exactly,
And usually people are going to, I find because all these events end so early, the mid-coast stuff, there's no town really lets you go past 10 o'clock.
Right.
People have a plan for the next part of their night.
Well, and lighting becomes an issue too, especially in your
Yeah.
early stages, right? I mean, you're,
Yep, and you know, once the sun goes down and you dance for a couple hours, people have been, you know, we do a 6 hour event. So from the, you know, the time the ceremony ends to when we stop is 6 hours. They're done.
Yeah.
You know, there's gonna be a crew of people that are gonna go back to some Airbnb or a hotel
right.
and they'll party, but that's not my problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's not on your liquor license
Yeah.
anymore.
I'm done.
Totally get it.
You know, and I get scared sometimes when we go to private houses,
Yeah,
where I can't really make the rules. You know, up until, you know, I can make it rules up until I stop serving. You know, but then they'll start, as soon as I'm done, you know, the kegs will come out and stuff and I just gotta walk away at that point, but you know, that's on their homeowner's insurance and
right.
no, not my problem. Again, not my problem at that point.
Exactly.
So with, you know, with this being on our property, I'm gonna be even more on top of everything because.
Right.
You know, this
Well,
is,
you don't want one bad decision to put you out of business. I mean,
Oh,
that's what it comes down to.
oh yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And the liquor license stuff is always the scariest part.
Exactly.
You know, it is, you know, it's terrifying when you see parties that, you know, start to get out of hand and, you know, and you've got to rein it in and make sure that's, because that is, your whole business can go down the drain, so.
So I have Shane providing us a more concise summary of phase one, a planting plan around the parking lot, a clearer map, and then some of the habitat maps and things.
Yeah, everything in 3.5, you just need to go through, and if
Yep.
you think it doesn't apply, then just indicate that, and yeah, we'll have a complete application.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks
Good
for coming by.
Thanks so much. Always great coming here. I'll get out of your way.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
We had some late arrivals in the audience. Does anyone have comments that they wanted to make to the board?
Were any of those comments?
To him, about him? No.
No, about something else. Wayne, yes, I know Wayne's.
I already did my little.
I'm with her.
Okay.
I missed it.
Say more.
Say more?
Yeah, say whatever you feel like needs to be said.
I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, sure. Well, let Wayne go. He's on the way.
Oh, there
You
we
can
go.
go after.
I'm for the same reason.
I know.
I take you on the pass it. This is, well, I appreciate the chance to have a word with you. This is germane to no application that is making its way through your purview, and you may not be the right group to be talking to, but want to talk about cell phones, infrastructure development. The language that you've got in the ordinance talks about and only about restricting cell towers to within 300 yards of Route 1. And there seems to be a consensus that that's a dead issue, that it's not practical to serve the region under that constraint. But that leaves the town without any tools at all to manage the infrastructure development stuff. And that really, those issues have long-range economic development implications. Those are in addition to the things that you're accustomed as a board to dealing with, like protecting historical things and wildlife things. And this will have an impact on what kind of business is done where in the town over the next decade or more. The live issue in telecommunications now is putting 5G phone service into use. And 5G uses 3 bands of radio frequencies, and I am certainly no techie geek, so I'm not gonna get far into the weeds, but the cell service that we're all used to uses low frequency and mid bands. And those are pretty fast. There's some lag, there's some stutter, but they'll travel for several miles. The low frequencies a long way, medium frequencies 3, 4, 5 miles. The thing that's new about 5G is the extremely high frequencies, and they will carry lots of information. You can encode the information real fast on those high frequencies, and it takes practically no time to get the information online and moving out. The downside is that those high frequencies used in that are peculiar to 5G don't travel very long. Maybe a fifth of a mile in good circumstances, fifth of a mile if there's no rain, if there's clear line of sight, if there's no brush. If you want to have the advantages of that high speed stuff, you gotta have what are called mini cells. They're gadgets about as big as I am or smaller that mount on a phone pole or on a building. And they do what a tower does, but they do it over fairly short range, and you gotta have a bunch of them. You can't stick one in the sky and cover a big area. You can certainly ask, well, what good is this extremely fast service? The honest answer is nobody knows. Honestly, it seems that the attitude in the industry is build it, get it out there, and we'll see what the hell people do with it. But it's gonna require quite a dense infrastructure to distribute that. As I say, you can't stick a tower up and have it go for miles. Now, a real question is if a company spends $500,000, maybe 300,000 putting up a tower and a couple of 100,000 putting electronics on it, are they gonna then double back and install small cells all around so that you can have the high speed from the high frequencies in addition to the long range from the low frequencies? These, yes.
Quick question. Again, I'm no physics major either, but is it fair to say that the technology will be advancing so quickly that some of the stuff that is going on now will be outmoded fairly quickly, or is that not in your purview?
Well, I would doubt that I know more about it than you do. So I could guess, but it'd be me getting out my white cane to lead the
Right.
parade.
Right.
But I suspect you're right. The uses that are talked about for the real high frequencies are self-driving vehicles, whether it's on the lot, on the ground, or it's coming to deliver your prescription. And some other things, but honestly, nobody knows for sure what will happen with this stuff. But it's gonna happen pretty quickly. There's $42.5 billion laying out there ready to be handed to cell phone companies to fill in gaps. It goes by the acronym of BEAD, which is Broadband Equity Access Deployment. And the way that seems to have worked is cell phones turned in coverage maps to the FCC, supposed to show where the bare spots are. The FCC scattered those by state, Maine, New Hampshire, and they allocated money to the states. And then they're gonna ask the companies to come in and bid in a reverse sort of way, say, Verizon, what can you do in New Hampshire for $30 million? And Verizon will have a bid on how big a job they can do. The company may have a bid on showing a little bit more work, so they're calling it a reverse bidding process or something. You fix the money and see how much work you can buy for it. It's not been clean. The first round of coverage maps that the companies turned in were rejected as not being accurate. And I can't know whether they were inaccurate in the company's favor or just inaccurate because they were badly done, but they were junked. And I can't say that I'm real up to date on that, but it is an enormous amount of money. That $42 billion is over 3 times the budget of this whole state of Maine, budget for years. I mean, it's.
I just want to, there is a difference between a wireless and telecommunications tower and a broadband telecommunications tower. And there is an exemption in our ordinance for broadband towers. So broadband towers that are carrying high-speed internet can go anywhere. They're not the exemption of towers being within 300 feet of Route 1. It's not applied to broadband.
Okay.
Just
What power is it going up? Is it broadband or is it?
no, it's the tower that had the pre-application meeting last week is for a cell phone tower. But the BEAD funding is for broadband.
So I guess, just to wrap this up. My point is that there's gonna be a lot of money spent on cell phone communications in the next very few years. And it's probably gonna set the pattern as to whether or not system is built around towers with long range and slow speed. And where the small cells go, they'll let you do really fast stuff, some of which people have thought of and some of which they have not thought of. And there seems to be at this point anyway, that fact is going to influence what develops, what businesses happen, what home, work from home as a website developer and so on, where that happens. And strangely enough, I don't think there's real provision for public participation in any of this. Seems to be pretty much between the agencies and the companies. And congratulations, we citizens get told what their infinite wisdom they're going to give us. And I'm quite aware that planning board wasn't designed with this sort of issue in mind, but I don't know where else the issue ought to come before local governance. I can know how to change the law to make provision for it just by requiring an endorsement from local officials for the bid being submitted. That's my ideas about how to plow that into the system, but it's not there now. And as far as I understand it, the only levers that may be available are the land use plan. And that's even a matter of potential use. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I speak with no expertise. The people have spoke more knowledgeable, but it would seem to me, I live in a village in New York, and they wanted to put a cell tower up a number of years ago. And somehow or other, which I'm gonna find out how we did it, we didn't let them do it. And they have now gone around and put up these 5G little pods on telephone poles all over the village. Now, I don't know the economics of it. It's not my real concern as to what the economics of it are, but it would seem to me, to answer your question, are they putting up, and I don't know the answer, not an expert, are they putting up obsolete equipment to get them through a few years, and then eventually they're gonna go, these 5G units should be the units that should be put up there? I can't answer those questions. It would seem logical to me that that's what's going to happen. From a town point of view, I would think, I'm a firm believer in zoning. When you came up with the zoning all those years ago and everybody complained and blah, blah, blah about it, and you got it done, I was very happy with it. And I like zoning. I think strict zoning is very good. You're losing a lot of control here in allowing a cell phone company to tell you what you want to do. What they're going to do. Basically, it sounds to me like they've come in and said, we're going to put a tower up. And it doesn't seem to me, from what I've heard, that you have very much influence in that, which I think you should. That's my bit. I don't want the cell tower. It looks like hell. Thank you.
Sure thing. Can I get your name?
My name is Prescott Amrell. I live at 2645 Friendship Road. My parents bought the house in 1963, and we have continued to own it since. And I don't live there full time.
Yep. No problem. Thank you. Yeah, in response to both of your comments, we absolutely have a problem with the land use ordinance and the way that it's written, because it does not provide any sort of reasonable screening requirements or noise requirements or anything else for cell towers, because they were always intended to be within the 300 feet range, 300 yards, actually, I guess it is, from Route 1, which is all commercial zone. And no one's really concerned about what's going on in the commercial zone. But the reality is that all of this development going forward, as they expand these networks, is all going to be in residential neighborhoods, and they're doing it all over the state. I had an interesting conversation with the chair of the Noblesboro Planning Board this week. The same company is trying to put a tower up there. They're a couple of months ahead on that project, and they're doing their best to stop the development because they don't want it there either. It's the same story. They're putting it in a residential neighborhood. None of the locals want it there. They're happy with their cell phone service, and so they're going to send them to the FCC court to try to get force them to get a court order. Sounds like, to allow them to ignore the will of the municipality, to allow the thing to be developed. I think that at the very least, we should be revising the land use ordinance with this new knowledge that we've all gained in the last month or so, about how this development is going to happen going forward. I think we're all, sort of without adequate knowledge at this point. But we're learning a lot all the time. And I think some new rules and restrictions about how this development is going to happen, especially if, like you're pointing out, they have the ability to end run what the town actually wants. The least that we could do is try to demand some reasonable conditions of approval that provide screening for the neighbors, that provide noise limits on their generators, for example. That's a real problem in our ordinance. Emergency generators need to run, but they don't need to run at 100 decibels at the property line. And as of right now, there's no restriction on the sound output out of a generator on one of these sites. We all want the generators running so we can have power in emergencies, but there's no reason why we can't have silencers on them.
Would it make sense to ask somebody who doesn't work for the cell company but knows collectively apparently a lot more than any of us sitting in the room about all of this? Because I'm thinking about what Kate said a minute ago with broadband being different than cells. And I will confess my own degree of ignorance. I jumped on Fidium when it came through town because, long story, I don't need to get into, but I did. And then was amazed when my phone recognized the fact that I suddenly had the Fidium in the house and jumped onto Wi-Fi. And now I have better cell phone everything, and I'm not paying extra data charges. And so, what is, I mean, I heard some speculation about what is this all going to look like in 5 or 10 years? And I know I don't know, but I bet there's somebody out there who might be a friend of the community who has a much better grip on all of this, that doesn't have a horse in the financial race,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
could maybe educate all of us a little bit, because it's really hard to know. And then I personally worry about things like, are you leaving yourself open to, I mean, I don't want to be a site of a data farm. I won't get into all the reasons I'm not happy about those, but
Yep.
Electricity use and other things. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff out there that if it's not your thing, and so I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows anybody who might,
Well, if anybody does, please send them our way.
Just Ruben Mahar, who's on the selectmen, is a career telecommunications guy for Maine Met. Knows his stuff.
Yep, he may be a resource there. I didn't think to talk to him. I reached out to Nobleboro Planning because they've had a tower going up and they're dealing with this, and they're a couple months ahead of us. And I also reached out to the city of Rockland planning department, and I haven't heard back. They've had some interesting battles with cell phone developers in the last couple of years, where they were trying to stop towers in residential development.
Rockland,
Rockland,
were
yeah.
they successful?
I don't believe that they were, but they did wind up making a bunch of changes to their land use ordinance around it. Is what I've get, yeah, after the fact, yeah. That's what I'm just gathering that from newspaper articles that I've read about what they happened with them in 21.
well, maybe Ruben would be willing to come to the next meeting and I mean, what are we really losing if we didn't have the cell tower that we're not getting from something like having more accessible broadband in the community? And on and on and on. Is there some great invention around the corner that we're all gonna have that? What infrastructure is gonna be more forward leaning and all that? I mean, nobody in this room, I don't think, knows the answer to any of those things, but
as far as I know right now, the only people that are excited about getting this increased capacity on the wireless system are the emergency services people, who are excited to have repeaters on a pole there, so they've got better radio service down there. That's my understanding.
The only other thing that I can think of is, and I use that technology too, is when I'm in the field, I basically can get all my stuff through either my phone or my tablet while I do work. So I do know that is one portion of it, but that's kind of minor in the big scheme of things, so.
Yeah.
And I also, if I can just add to that, anecdotally, it's interesting too to think about, well, and you say, Margo, too, just the fact of the equipment itself, because sitting around a dining room table at my mom's house, 3 different phones. One person had 4 or 5 bars, I had 2, and my mom had none. So it totally depends on what you have for equipment and what you have for a plan.
right.
So to say broadly speaking, that a tower is going to solve everybody's gap in service or whatever they point it as.
From a practical point of view, Nobleboro is, how are they proceeding? What are they doing? Have they hired counsel, or are they just going in there and they're on their own? An expert that knows what they're talking about?
It sounds like their plan is to reject the application and force them to go to court and get a court order that allows them to ignore the rejection from the planning board.
Which isn't, I mean, that may not be a good precedent to create.
Well,
I mean,
there's also the conversation that I've been having with some people about how do we know what these brightly colored maps mean? Like, this is all just meaningless information unless you actually know what you're talking about. But when you go to the court and everybody's got their experts there, like, that sort of stuff. Like, is there really a need? Like, that's that's the bar that they have to meet in order to get that court order. And if
Right.
there really isn't a need there that they can really demonstrate, then they're not gonna get the court order. It's not a
Okay.
foregone conclusion.
Brendan, just
That
to
when they
play
go
devil's
there-
advocate, if, say we did that, say we voted, we don't want
Yeah.
that. Would the town have to take the bill to provide legal services if they sued the town?
I don't think that,
I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think about stuff.
I want to know what happened with Rockland, because Rockland, according to the newspaper article I read, did wind up in a lawsuit with a developer.
Yeah,
And I don't know any of the details about
Okay,
that.
I
And so I think that in the first stage of it, the answer to your question is no. But it costs this, the developer money to pay the lawyers to go to court and get the court order.
I see.
And then they come back to us and say, here's the court order. And then we would be in a position to make that decision, like, do we really want to fight this tooth and nail and spend that money?
If you don't, as a town, don't want to give away your ability to regulate this, you gotta be a heck of a lot more proactive than just waiting to get a court order.
Right.
You've gotta, you've gotta have experts that can sit there and tell you, this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna lose no matter what you do.
Yeah,
You're gonna win if you can prove this, that, or the other thing.
yeah.
That, none of us know that.
Yeah. So I think that you make that decision after they go to the court and get that court order, and then
I would think
You
you'd
decide.
want to be there before. So you don't wanna fight or win something that's already been decided. You wanna
Yeah.
you wanna come in before it's been decided and say, no,
At least to have the experts.
huh?
Have the experts.
Have the experts.
yeah,
Well, I mean, let's really know. I mean, I just heard one good argument for why, one useful thing with the tower, but, I mean, are there alternatives to that for the emergency services that would enhance their situation that isn't the cell tower? I mean, I don't think any of us really know, so I'm all for, hopefully Ruben is a good suggestion and can answer a lot of questions, but I really don't know what in the long term is the best thing for us. I'm not sure we really know. I mean, I don't like looking at the cell tower either, et cetera, but I don't know. I just really feel like I don't know
And
all sides of this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I told him, we met before, and I told him, I spoke to the local attorney that I deal with down in New York, and he knew that my village had beat the cell tower, but he didn't know enough about it. So, and he didn't even know which direction to point me in as to who, I'm gonna go next week and I'm gonna speak to the village, and see how they did, or what they did, or who they used, and try to get more information. I'm gonna pass that information, if I get it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass along to Amy.
Great.
Um,
Yeah.
You can put all the trees and